Hello again, Ian Stokey with Mastermind Games, back for more Malifaux. This time, Zoraida, Tanskin 09044. So, human by birth, Zoraida came to Malifaux through a lesser breach long before the main breach, created in the late 1700s, something like that, I think. And while she is human by birth, she is Neverborn in spirit. She's highly skilled at twisting the skeins of fate, with only one other having the same amount of talent for it. And she was actively working with Lilith and Pandora to prevent the rise of the tyrants, or to counteract it if they could prevent. Unfortunately, the return of Titania has thrown a severe kink into her plans. And after Governor General Kitchener's ascension / obliteration into the Burning Man, she seems to have lost some of her abilities, and I'm not just talking about her avatar form. She did manipulate the gremlins into forming their own army and is dual faction with the Bayou. And though I'm sure she had ideas for who should lead, she was not allowed to have a say in who the gremlin general would be. I'm going to play around with the shading on her skin. For some reason, they decided to sculpt all the way up to her buttocks, even though she's got this long skirt on. The first version of Zoraida in first edition, the metal one, was actually topless, so that's covered up on this version now. Though why they sculpted all the way up to her butt when this is long skirt is here is beyond me, but whatever. I'm gonna let that dry before I move on, so back in a bit. Okay. Olive green 09035. And I'm using just enough water to thin the paint. I'm keeping my brush moist but not overly wet. I'm going to get this green up into her skirt between her legs as far as I can, as thoroughly as I can, but it's something of an awkward angle to work with. I would call this a case for doing a partial assembly, but it really doesn't work out on this one very well at all. I got that voodoo doll by accident. So yeah, Zoraida makes a lot of voodoo dolls, and that's her totem, which will be the next video I do. But there was another game, a standalone put out by Weird called Puppet Wars. I don't know if it's in print or not anymore. But basically, Zoraida has a cabin full of voodoo dolls based off all the other characters of Malifaux. While she was away doing things, the puppets would fight. So, yeah. And one of her schemes that backfired horribly involved the effigies. Puppets she crafted for a long-term plan to potentially siphon or power from or control the other all the factions, including her own. But during Governor Kitchener's ascension, the effigies absorbed the overflow of power and sort of evolved into the emissaries. berries. Now, matte white for her hair, I think. She is positively ancient and very much looks it. I'm planning on doing her eyes and mouth just dead black, which is just a Neverborn thing I do. Try not to nick her face while I do this. And Zoraida's. A lot of Malifaux models are inspired by folklore or even popular culture, and Zoraida has more than a little Baba Yaga in her on multiple levels. Okay, let's see. That'll do for now. Just gonna let that dry up and move on when it does. Alright. Next, uniform gray. This is going on her shawl, which I think there might be mushrooms growing on it. I'll just see what it looks like after I get some color on it. And I realize upon looking a little closer at Zoraida's face, she looks a bit like Popeye. Being careful where it comes up against her hair. Just okay. Then Shield Brown 09161 will get her cane here. I don't think Zoraida actually needs a cane to walk. She either keeps it as a feint or bluff to feign weakness, or it's magical, or both. Kind of working from the lowest part of the model to the highest. And now, where is it? Tarnished Steel 09206. I don't need much of this at all. This is just going on her hairpins. And of course, this big needle, which I decided I definitely want nice and shiny. So if you want to give it a rusty look, a shade or highlight of scorched metal will do that for you. Alright, so that's going to leave the voodoo dolls and the base and maybe some mushrooms if I decide that's what these lumps are. For now, I'm going to let this dry and come back in a bit. Alright, So yeah, she definitely has mushrooms growing in her shawl. So Marine Teal 09077 will make them bright and colorful and toxic looking. And if I see any mushrooms on bad juju when I get to them in a little bit, I'll give them the same coloration. So I'm just gonna pick out these shrooms here. And Banshee Brown for all the voodoo dolls. And there are a lot of them. I was kind of ambiguous on exactly where some of them were supposed to go. So I kind of wound up guessing on a lot of them. Just focusing right here, that's why I'm quiet. And Zoraida does have the ability to summon her voodoo doll totem during the game, which currently attaches an upgrade to the target, which puts some kind of penalty. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but there's also a way of getting rid of it. I believe it's called That Thing Doesn't Look Like Me. Hey, that doesn't look like me, or something along those lines. Bit too much paint on there. This is an army painter color I'd gotten as a substitute for a khaki in the Reaper Master series, which I've since replaced finally, but I will go ahead and just use this up. But these don't thin at the same consistency as the Reaper paints do. It's not a bad brand, but I still have my preferences. I was kind of switching over because Reaper is unavailable locally for me, and then everything shut down, so I figured if I gotta go online for paint anyway, I'll just get what I like. Alright. Once that dries, that'll just leave one more base coat, then I can start shading. Alright. Last base coat. Woodstain Brown 09160. Do some mud. This is a base coat, not shading. I'm getting ahead of myself. Base coating, you want just enough water to thin the paint, keeping the brush moist but not soaking wet. And this is just a quick custom sculpted base insert, just a layer of sculpting putty into the recess in the base with a pattern carved in. Just kind of a push down into it with a tool to give it a lumpy, uneven look for rough terrain mud. And there we go. Once that, as much as I'd like to dive into the shading right now, I need to let that dry because I'll be getting the mushrooms and the voodoo dolls first, and maybe even the pins. There actually might be quite a bit I can do here, but let me let that dry first, so back in a bit. Oh boy, my system is having issues again. Okay, well, back in a bit. Alright, time to shade. I think I'll start with the metal, so Blackened Steel 09205. Looks like I can actually get quite a bit of it right here, right now. Thinning with 1 part water to 1 part paint to make it into a wash. And just going over the base coats. Be careful with the eye of the needle not to get any into there if I can help it. But if I do, I can just blow it out. Otherwise, it may leave a film inside. That's just something to be mindful of. And Khaki Shadow 09121 for the voodoo dolls. This one's about shot, but I have a spare on hand. That might be enough. Let's go from top to bottom here. A little more right there. Devotion 09076. And just get the mushrooms, which again are probably poisonous and may or may not be magical. Though there was a bit of fiction in one of the Gremlins books introducing Ulix about one of his pigs getting into Zoraida's storeroom. Woodstain Brown 09160 and giving birth to a solid gold piglet after eating whatever she found down there, with Zoraida just having a good laugh about it. Okay. Yeah, that's all I can get right this minute, so call that good, let it dry, and move on in a bit. Well, it was focusing for a little bit, now it's not, so back in a bit. Alright. Where is it? Stormy Gray 09088. Getting the rest of the shawl. I picture this as being made of the hide of some beast of Malifaux. Possibly some wolf-like or bear-like creature, but okay, and I'm gonna have to let that dry before I get the dress. So back in a bit. Alright. Muddy Olive 09034. Again, still thinning this down with 1 part water to 1 part paint. Trying to get the inside of the skirt as much as I can. And go on from there. Letting this flow where it wants to flow for the most part. And be careful around here because there are a couple of holes that are deliberate. Again, I don't want that paint to flow in where I don't want it. Yeah, the optimal filming angle, the optimal painting angle are two different things here, but that's got it. I'll let that dry completely, then I can do the hair and skin and go from there. Alright. Rainy Gray 09038. I'm going to use this to shade the hair and the skin. Make it look off. Being careful where that voodoo doll is about to hug her leg. I'm trying to go as high up the leg as I can as well. Okay. Let that dry completely, and I can get the last layer of shading and do some details. So back in a little bit again. Alright, last bit of shading, a few details, all of them in pure black, 09037. A little bit's all I'm going to need. Using the same amount of water as a base coat, just enough to thin the paint. I was going to do some button eyes on the voodoo dolls where I see them. Zoraida's eyes. Just dead black. And her big grin as well. It doesn't seem to have any teeth in it. That's nice and disturbing. Then thinning the rest with 2 to 3 parts water to 1 part paint. Going over the basing here. Keeping the brush very wet during this. Alright. Oh, wait a minute. Forgot to do eyes on this doll. Okay. Now let that dry completely before I highlight. Alright. Time to highlight. Tanned highlight 09045. Switching to a dry brushing technique. Ragged feathered brush, something along the lines of this. Straight paint, no water. Rubbing most of it out on a paper towel. And dusting the area to be affected. Oh, dropped her. Let's see if this will focus again. I'm focusing on the readily visible areas only, not every little thing, so... Her face really looks inhuman, which actually works out very well for the character. Matte white again. Let's go with pale olive 09036. So if I don't mention a number, then it's an Army Painter color. The Reaper Master series, they're all numbered, and this one is plugged up. So paper clip down the nozzle. try to make it come into focus again. And again, just worrying about what's readily visible as opposed to every little thing going against the raised edges. Misty Gray 09090. This one's about shot, but that little squirt should be enough to do what I need to do. True Silver 09207. Not too much of this. And again, the optimal angle for painting and the optimal angle for cinematography are radically different. Getting the hairpins and shining of that needle. Driftwood Brown 09162. Yeah, that's fine. Surf Aqua 09078. Not too much of this, just a few mushrooms. Khaki Highlight 09123. Which is also about cached. That should be enough to work with though. Okay. You touch up a few glued all eyes, but that's alright. Shield Brown 09161. Get the mud. And 09037 Pure Black. There are two things I need this for. First, I'm going to touch up an eye here and there. Just That's okay. Maybe just a little more. Now switching to a flat head. Again, I'm keeping my brush moist but not overly wet. Just going to line the base. Going close to, but not trying to avoid touching the base insert I did. Now, I'm still having the focus issue, but it seems to be getting a little better, so I'm slowly making progress. Alright, that needs to dry and then I need to varnish, but that's it. Oh, Zoraida the Swamp Hag from the Neverborn and Bayou faction of Malifaux. Continuing on with the box set next with the Voodoo Doll totem, so until then, I am Ian Stuckey with Mastermind Games, signing out.